went to the skating rink every Friday, and there was like a gay group there, and I wore a rainbow choker not knowing what that meant. I
Okay.
was so ignorant, okay? And they were just very drawn to me, and I loved the attention. I was like, "Okay, like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty." But they had their hand there was this one who was way older than me. She actually shouldn't have been there. And she, this was in the midst of my grandmother, and she was like in my life, and I was trying to go to church, and I was trying to be a good girl, but then I got rejected again. And I went to where what was drawing me. And every time I even try to come out of that with the group that I was in, she wouldn't let anybody near me. She had already claimed me as hers, and I
Mhm.
was too afraid, but also kind of drawn to the false security that I had with this woman.
Yeah.
And she was grown. Okay, she was like in her 20s. I was like 16. Um, and I just remember kind of being drawn to that. So when I got rejected, I stopped going to church. I was like, okay, God, here we go again.
Mm.
I started doing drugs, and I remember my grandmother was still struggling with drinking, but not as bad. And one night when I was supposed to go out, she asked me to get her a glass of wine, and I took the whole bottle up there. I was like, "You're a grown woman. Like, I'm not going to keep pouring your wine." And I took it up there, and I came home, and she was drank the whole bottle. She busted her head, had to go to the hospital, and it went downhill from there. And then I found out she took all my money. My
Mm.
mother was coming in and out of my life, so I was trying to have this relation with my mother. My grandmother felt threatened, and I was back at my parents' house. And then I was in a full blown, I hate men. I can't
Mm.
trust anybody. This is who I am. And that is what led me into my my toxic relationship that I was in. And that's when I dropped out of school and got bad on drugs. And the only way out of that relationship was with her brother.
Hmm.
Yeah, who was the only person she trusted me around, and he knew it. I wasn't allowed, she watched me work. She watched me outside my classes. One time I was in a parade when I tried to go back to school, and she would follow me all the way from the parade so I didn't talk to anybody.
So what was the story with her brother then? That was your next relationship was her brother?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
he was my friend for years. He's actually the father of my children, my 2 older
Okay.
children. Mhm,
Wow.
mhm.
So
Um,
she's their aunt.
yes, yeah, but they don't know him because he left.
Yeah.
And we were engaged and everything. Like, I had a dress. Like, that's what led me to North Carolina. We moved from Alabama to North
Mm.
Carolina, and that's where I met God, was in the middle of the country where you see more bear and deer than you do people. That I ran there with my ex in a trailer where the floors were falling through. And I remember seeing a church called Cabin Swamp in the country, and I was so desperate. And I had this 6-month-old baby, because I thought a baby would save me and this would save me. Um, and I just found all these ways to try to get out because I was so stuck. And that's where I got saved and baptized. And that's where I got
Wow.
my godly family who passed recently, who took me in, and my son. And that's where I got my GED. That's where I went to college. That's where I
Mm.
started teaching. And I even fell back then. I got pregnant again and engaged. I was like, I need to get engaged. But then I fasted, with Kathy, who was my godly mother at the time. And she's like, "Look, we need to fast." She was like on heart dialysis, like she was not good. But she's like, "We're gonna fast one day because you are so torn about this." And I was like, "God is gonna make me happy. God is gonna just make me happy with him." And I knew I didn't love him, but I have 2 kids with him, you know? And so we fasted, and then God had me write. He literally put my son to sleep. It was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon one afternoon. My ex was gone, and I wrote. And I remember God telling me, like, "He is not for you, he's to go, and you are not to follow. I will redeem him. You and the boys will be okay." And I called off the engagement. I called off all the plans, all the money we spent on the wedding. The
Wow.
dress I was supposed to wear for our marriage, I wore for my husband now.
Okay.
It was meant
The
for him.
dress was redeemed too.
All of it. Jesus cares about all the little things. Like,
Yeah.
my bed, like all the things that I shared with him were gone. Like, God replaced everything when I went to a new church. And yeah, that's my
Hmm.
story is dynamic.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there.
There is. But
Uh,
that's how I got saved. I remember like looking at a poster of Jesus because I had my 6-month-old son in this country church, and I think maybe I shared a little bit of it on TikTok, but, I looked at this poster when that day, I looked at my son, I was like, "I don't know where I'm gonna go if I leave this church. I don't know if I'm gonna go to hell or heaven." And I have raised my hand 20 times when they tell you to raise your hand,
Mm,
but I've never been baptized, and every time I was introduced to be baptized my whole life, I never did. I
okay.
never I just it was too much of a commitment, but I knew it was time. But I had no idea what it was. I thought you had to do all these steps, and the pastor laughed at me. I was like, "No, I think I have to do all this to get baptized." He's like, "No, that's not how this works." And so that night, I tried to get my ex to come and watch me get baptized because we were still trying to work things out. And he was my security blanket. It takes time to heal. We don't just get saved and like
Yeah.
everything is transformed. I don't want people to get that image, but God is with us through all of it. He literally never leaves us, no matter what we do. He will never leave us. He is always faithful.
Mm,
Um, and so I got baptized that night, but I was 20 minutes late because I wasn't going to go. And I was so torn because my ex didn't want me to go. He's like, plan it another time. But I just
mhm.
felt like they're waiting for me. And so I packed all my clothes. I was like, let me just go tell them that I'm going to do it another time. The pastor was waiting by the door. This small little country church. There was 20 people. They were standing up like they knew I was coming. I was like 20 minutes. It was raining. I'll never forget it. And I come in and he grabs me. Like, wait, he looks up. I'll never forget it. He looks up and he's like he knew. Like God had him wait. And I go in the door, so I was like, "Look, I'm not." He's like, "Yes, you are." And then I remember
Oh
looking at
my
my son
god.
getting baptized, and that
Yeah,
poster I was talking about, there was a poster of Jesus, those little images of Jesus,
yeah.
and I look at the poster and I'm like, "Okay, this is it. I want you. I want all of you. I'm ready. I'm ready." I knew in that moment I was ready to commit my life to him, and I did. I fell back, but I never ever left him. I
Mhm,
strived for him even in my downfalls. He was always with me, and it goes on, but here I am today with an amazing man, amazing children, and I'm honored to do what God has called me to do that gives him nothing but glory by sharing my story like I am here.